specifically. Hello friends, family, and everyone in between. My name is Kaylin Edwards and this is my very random YouTube channel. I don't think we're gonna have any interruptions by the dogs this time. They are in the other bedroom, I guess, giving me attitude because they pooped in the house and I got onto them. So that may not be a problem this time. Today I am going to be talking to you guys about death. Specifically, I'm going to be talking to you guys about killing off one of the characters in your book and dealing with death, maybe how you should go about offing the character, things like that. I don't know how strict YouTube has got, so I hope this video doesn't like get, I don't know, flagged or something. I don't know. What do people who actually make money off of YouTube worry about? When offing a character, you really need to consider the reasons for doing so. Is it to build suspense, drama? Is it symbolic of something else? Or is it just used in setting a tone? Because I have seen plenty of movies where a bunch of characters die within the first 10-15 minutes, but these characters were meant to die in a way of setting the tone for the movie or even for a book. It's to let you know shit is real in this world. It's not butterflies and rainbows. This is what you have to look forward to. I've seen plenty of movies that literally, like, especially scary movies that start with the death of some random, I don't know, night watcher, sometimes a butthole who snuck into a place they weren't supposed to be. Regardless, that death was used in setting the tone. And sometimes deaths are symbolic. Sometimes the death itself is more than just a death. It wasn't just the person dying, but it was symbolic of something else. Like, I know books use a lot of symbolism. What are you doing with this death? Don't just put someone dying in there because you want to see if you can write it. Like, it's got to have a reason that this person, character, thing is dying, especially if it's a dog. Especially if it's a dog. You need to have a good reason on why you are ending this dog. On top of that, whenever you take away someone, especially if they mean something to this world, to the world that you're writing, is how is that death going to impact everyone else in the story? Who is going to be torn up about it? Who is going to reap the benefits probably of this person no longer being here? But who is also going to end up suffering even more because the person is no longer around? Like, what is the impact of that on the other characters? Don't just do it for two sentences and be like, everyone was sad. Then they went on an adventure and everything was great again. No, that's not how it works in the real world, so don't do that with your book. And if you do something like that, the reader ends up being detached from that death, and at the end, and then it ends up being like, what was the point? Again, what was the reason of all that? Again, you can use deaths as setting a tone, but those were used because they were going to impact either the reader, how the reader is supposed to feel, or how the other characters are supposed to feel. And even the storyline, plotting, when a character, especially if it's a main character and it has a name, that death should be more than just a couple sentences. It may trigger the person for chapters to come. It shouldn't be a constant triggering, but it shouldn't be just like, oh, we forgot about it. It happened. Another thing that you need to consider, which I'm figuring you have, if you've decided to off a character, then you've probably determined how you're going to do it as well. But with that, it's not just saying, oh, so and so dies this way. In a book, you need to consider who is there, who's going to witness it, who's going to, especially if it isn't by their own hands, whose hands is it by? And by doing that, by so-and-so doing this to that person, how is that going to impact how we view this other character, this other being, whatever it is, or even just a mechanism? But also, especially with your words, you need to consider how explicit you're going to be with describing this person's death, especially if it's not normal. If it's out of the box, if it's something we don't normally see, hear, whatever. Are you going to include your characters hearing, I don't know, bone snapping? Are you going to include gut just falling out, doing all that stuff? Like, how explicit are you going to be? And a lot of that has to deal with the tone that you're trying to set, but also with your audience. Because if your audience, if your target audience are 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds, you're not gonna be like, so-and-so shit themselves right after they died and we smelt it and saw it and everything else. Yeah, you need to consider your tone, you need to consider your audience when doing these deaths. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want my sister, my 8-year-old sister, reading about guts pouring out of somebody's body. Unless it's Goosebumps. I feel like they can get away with a lot of stuff. And I made hint of this earlier, but also don't treat these characters as throwaways, especially if you've named them. Don't use them as throwaway characters just for the sake of being able to off a character. Because if you do something like that, that ends up making your audience far less attached, not only to their death, but it makes them attached from the story in general. Because if you're just killing characters willy-nilly after you've named them, after, you know, I've been introduced to them, and their death really doesn't serve any purpose, it just happened, then I'm gonna be like, okay, well, that was lame, that's not realistic. That can end up making your readers just like used to death, and I don't, unless that's the vibe you're trying to go for, which I hope not, but if that's the vibe you're trying to go for, good for you. But if it's not that vibe, then you need to really consider, again, what are the reasons for this? How is this going to impact other characters? And what is the reason for this character? Like, if their only reason is to die, that sounds really boring. And that just sounds like I'm not going to be attached to that person or their death, and it's really not going to serve any purpose in your book whatsoever. Something that I did not really think of when I off my character that I wish I had, and I even made note of this when I was writing down, like, I literally handwrite my stuff and just think of things to talk about, but I really need to go back and implement this more into my death scene that I have for one of my characters. You need to think about the burial. Are they going to have a burial? If so, how does it happen? Do people talk about it? Do they bury them? Do they burn them? Like, what is the whole burial tradition routine? And that is also part of world building, because how, you know, we bury people now isn't how the Aztecs buried someone. How we view death and how we view the afterlife isn't the same as other cultures, even in our current modern system. Death, burials, the afterlife, these are very deep topics to talk about, but if they are important in that point in the book, then you need to consider how you're going to approach them, how much detail you're going to put into it. You need to use that in helping with world building. If it's your typical burial, great, but like, if it's not, if your world is just something far detached from our world, then the way that they bury someone, the way that they treat death, the way that they view the afterlife is not going to be the same. It shouldn't be the same. I would be really surprised if it was. People in our own modern system don't view those three things the same as you and I. And we probably don't. I don't know who you are. I don't know who's watching this, but I'm pretty sure we don't view it the same either. And that is pretty much all that I have for you guys for this video. As always, there's plenty of more that I can talk about and touch on and, you know, cover. But for the sake of time, my patience, editing, and the fact that not many people are viewing my videos right now, I'm not going to do all that. So, but I do hope you guys did learn something and were able to, I don't know, if you're writing a death scene or were thinking about it, if you were going to off a character, have off a character, and you've gone through that process of writing all this stuff, maybe these, you know, considerations that I brought to your attention will help you think, oh, well, maybe I should have did that, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or even for your future projects. I just hope you guys learned something. If you have your own tips, advice, things that you'd like to see in books, things that you don't like to see in books, leave them in the comment section below. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Instagram. We will see you all next time. Bye.